And that was before my cat, so it was just me and my houseplants.
Oh my God.
That's why I think I have grown into a weirder person.
I think that's fine. I think we all have.
There was like a point where I was like a completely untrained vine. I just was like going places.
Just wandering around my house alone. Untouched.
But yeah, anyway. This is about Steven Universe and fanfic.
Not real life. Okay, welcome to Fine Pairings. I'm Grace.
I'm Claire.
We're not talking about classical literature this week. I'm sure we're going to make jokes about it on accident, but that's fine. We just like books. Is this a book fandom?
No,
it's not.
It's not based on a book.
Ah, okay, good.
So my prompt was a redo of the lockdown. And when I initially gave you this prompt several seasons ago.
Lockdown, I think you specifically were like, COVID-19.
Correct, because I think this was season 2.
Yeah,
and
it had just started,
and it was like
a
August.
Weekend.
No, it was like late enough that's why I thought that the episode came out in like August.
Yeah, and we didn't have it recorded that far ahead of time. I want to say
no, we probably recorded it in July, so it had been long enough that I thought there would be fix-a-plenty.
Yeah, it was not.
And then you had you did valiantly. But it was a struggle.
I got 2 fix out of that one.
Yes.
Steam and cream and a main
You
feed.
did. And when I went on this journey, I was like, oh, this is hard.
So like when you went back on this lockdown journey, was it COVID-19 specific or was it like lockdown used in a different capacity?
A lot of them were COVID specific.
Okay.
It was easier for me to like read them now because we've gotten a little distance from it. There were COVID ones, but I also would like look at just blanket quarantine or here was my real problem actually is that when I looked at like COVID specific lockdown.
So I assume lockdown's not the tag.
Some of them were tagged lockdown. Some of them were tagged COVID-19 lockdown or pandemic or quarantine. And my biggest problem was actually a lot of them were smut. And
yes,
so a lot of enemies to lovers were happening in we have gotten trapped in the same house. Like it is dangerous for me.
Get drunk together one night and hook up, and then we have to talk about it.
There was a lot of
there were really good ones of that.
And I think what happened is as I was looking at these tags, and so eventually I did find one, and I have brought one.
Yay.
And what's interesting is I think perhaps I just asked for a lockdown fic a hair prematurely because like this one came out in August.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I was thinking it was back in like April or something because like to me it was pretty fresh.
And this one is a fic called Quarantine by Hadithi, Hadithi. So I might have butchered that name. But this is also a Steven Universe fanfic.
Wait, who's the ship?
Technically, the ship is Connie Steven.
Okay.
But I would say that this isn't like super...
It's more general than
ship. This isn't like super ship focused.
Because they all live in the same house.
Yes.
So.
And what I found interesting about this is we actually dissect more how Steven and the Gems are responding to the pandemic because Steven and the Gems can't get sick.
Yeah.
And so they're having a similar but different experience.
I'm surprised. Well, I guess I would have assumed the Gems couldn't get sick. That totally makes sense. Steven, I guess I don't remember like what his human side, which like this could be the author's
yes. And in
idea. I can't remember what in the show specifically his reaction is.
And this fic, he cannot get sick. And
so it's just Connie?
And so yes.
Aww.
But you will see that we have some kind of interesting conversations about Steven, the Gems, Connie, and how they're experiencing the pandemic. And then this fanfic is kind of interesting because it is, instead of like one kind of continuous, they're all related, but it's, the summary is it's 6 short drabbles about Steven and Connie coping with the pandemic and quarantine.
Oh, cute.
So it's like a bunch of...
It's maybe a little, let's 6, so it's kind of 5 plus 1, but maybe not like building in the same way.
I'm going to read, I think I'm just going to read 5 of them. So I'm going to skip the first one and then just read the next 5.
Okay.
And so that'll bring us, so that'll bring us to the cocktail. So the cocktail is a Blue Lagoon. And I found it because I was looking for a blue cocktail because I was thinking very like blue medical, like blue surgical drapes, blue masks, blue, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And so then when I was like, I would like a blue cocktail. And then this came up. And I thought it was very fitting because Beach City is
yeah.
So it is kind of like
Florida?
Yeah.
Ish?
Yeah. It's like supposed to be
on the
Florida.
coast.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be
on
like
an ocean.
Yeah, I always assumed it was Florida-ish. So it is 1.5 ounces vodka, 1.5 ounces blue curacao, 4 ounces lemonade, and then a splash of lime juice.
Ooh. Okay. Because I have really strong feelings about UV blue lemonades because that was the drink everyone drank in college and high school. Maybe edit that out because it's not legal. But that was I don't know if it was my friends or if it was a Wisconsin thing to drink UV blue lemonade to the point where I had a cousin who got married and at the wedding, not even just the cocktail, but they had a fountain. A fountain of UV blue lemonade.
I will say
that I desperately tried to steal, but I was maybe like 14, 15. So I had a lot of anxiety about trying to do that.
There's a dive bar that I've gone to with some friends that during the summertime, it's that when I like went to go order, I was like, oh, they had like an advertisement for vodka lemonades.
Yeah.
And
which are good.
Yeah, they are good.
It's just something about UV blue just makes it feel worse.
No, and I do remember I one time did order a blueberry because you could get it with flavor.
Yeah, sure.
What was really funny about this dive bar was I think one time I got the strawberry lemonade and they straight up used I thought I was going to get strawberry vodka lemonade.
Oh.
And they gave me
a vodka strawberry lemonade.
No.
No?
They gave me, I was like not prepared for like the classiness at this dive bar. They used strawberry puree, vodka, and lemonade.
That sounds really good.
It was so good. And so I like came out to I went out to my friends with this drink and they were like, what is that? And I was like, it's a strawberry vodka lemonade, but strawberry, vodka, lemonade.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is like, this feels a little heightened compared, which like, I would not say blue curacao is like super fancy, but no, I think that might be making it a little bit smoother. Remember UV blue lemonade being incredibly tart.
Right. But yeah, so we're going to get into the fic. In the first chapter, the little first drabble is kind of, they're just like setting the scene about like we're in the pandemic and
I assume it's like the Earth canon pandemic.
Correct. It is the Earth. Yes, it is the Earth canon pandemic. And like the first drabble is basically like setting up like everyone's experiencing things differently. And like Connie in particular is upset because her mom is a doctor. And and so she's not seeing her mom as much. And I forget I should probably introduce Steven Universe a little bit more. Just in case. Sometimes I get excited when we're like both in a fandom.
Oh, yeah, I know, because it doesn't happen that much. And like we usually do just set up stuff anyway. But yeah, Steven Universe.
I forgot. So Steven Universe is a Cartoon Network animated show. It like was for kids, but it was also compelling enough, obviously, for adults.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of like themes in it that was like, oh, as a child, you probably don't process this fully, but as an adult, I'm like weeping.
Steven Universe, like Shiro, was also kind of like that, where it was like written by someone who appreciated cartoons but wanted to have a different conversation through cartoons. And I remember seeing TikToks that was like, my 5-year-old had this conversation with me prompted by Steven Universe, and it ended up being a really good conversation about like grief.
Oh God, right?
Because this cartoon recognized that my 5-year-old was grieving for her uncle or like whatever, and I was like, oh
no,
why have we
Steven like, Universe used to bring me to tears.
It's not Catcher in the Rye, but like
crying in the rye.
It's not us talking about sex with a prostitute, but like it is relevant to their tiny lives.
So
anyway,
back to my
what is Steven Universe about?
What is Steven Universe? So
what isn't Steven Universe about?
So the premise of Steven Universe is that he is a for lack of a better word, like a superhero boy. There's all of these characters referred to as gems, and they do all have like mineral and gem names.
Aliens.
Yeah, they're aliens. And so there's like pearl and amethyst and quartz and all this stuff. And they are from an alien planet, and a select of them have come to Earth and are living there. And Steven Universe is the product of a union between a gem, a rose quartz, and a human man, Mr. Universe.
But he's also the reincarnation of his mom.
Yes, and it's like a confusing...
his mom is has died, but also he is his mom.
Yes, correct. It's like a weird, and so there's a lot of
There's a lot of like sacrifice involved.
Yeah, there's a lot of themes around grief of like him having never met his mom, and his existence came at the demise of his mom.
And grief of other people being like, you are your mom, but also I have a lot of weird feelings because you also kind of killed your mom but you had no choice in that matter. Like, it's very ethically complicated.
So for the context of this fanfic, Stephen is a human gem. So he has elements of both being human and both being a gem. And then he does have both human friends, but gem friends
are kind of his adoptive caretakers.
So we're going to dive into quarantine. The pandemic has happened, and Stephen and Connie have had a conversation about how she misses her mom. And so we're going to dive into the second drabble. I'm not going to take it off, I promise, Stephen began as he adjusted the blue disposable mask on his face. It was the last one in the box Connie had given him, as too many of the others had worn down from overuse. He was trying to find some position on his face that left him fully covered while mitigating the itchiness, but with no such luck. It was his fault, though. He should have known better than to leave it somewhere his pet lion.
His pet lion. Don't worry about it. His mythical pet lion. He's not a real lion.
He's an alien
He's
lion.
An alien projection manifestation lion.
Yeah.
But he still kind of acts like a cat.
Yeah, he's like a pink lion.
He's a big cat.
Yeah.
My cat's never gotten to my masks. They probably should have more. I just kept them away.
My cat never did, but I definitely had cat hair on it. So...
the train wreck that was having a cat hair in your mask like the grocery store or somewhere that you like couldn't
it's just like tickling your nose and you're like, help.
You're just like trying to get it out of your nose or your mouth.
Yes.
No, we're gonna explain these things to like future generations. They're gonna be like, I don't understand.
Right. Oh God. He should have known better than to leave it somewhere a lion could sleep on it. But he had, and now he paid the price for his last mask covered in short, scratchy, pink fur. He hadn't realized how much worse lion fur would be over his nose than the usual coating on his shirt and pants. I don't get why I have to wear it if I can't get sick, he muttered. Connie laughed behind her own mask. Always prepared, Connie had ordered 6 masks off Blue Bubble, and the one she was wearing now was a daring-looking black and red. It was modeled after what Lisa wore in the mines, and he could only stare longingly as he wished he had done the same. You can swap for something less lion-y at my house, Connie promised. But the mask isn't just about your safety. It's about everyone else's, too.
We don't know how gems will transfer viruses, so...
Accurate.
I get it.
We don't know what your magic does to viruses,
That's
Stephen.
what I'm saying.
Just because you don't have symptoms doesn't mean you don't have it.
Connie's on top of this.
Right? He pouted, though his puppy dog eyes were far weaker without the rest of his face to complement it. Why does magic have to make everything so hard? It's just like that for humans too, Connie shrugged and gestured her hands vaguely as she explained. Viruses, bacteria, even genetics. Sometimes you're a carrier with no symptoms. That's why everyone has to wear a mask, even superheroes like you. He sighed begrudgingly, but a little bit of discomfort on his end wasn't going to keep him from risking anyone else's safety. He resolved to buy some better-looking masks soon, ones he could wash and ones he could keep far, far away from Lion's fuzzy body. His hand slid into hers, and he tried to make sure he was smiling with his eyes.
Aw.
Can I borrow one of your cute masks until I get some of my own? She giggled and squeezed his hand tight. Of course, silly. Anything to keep you safe.
Cute.
Next drabble. Pandemic life was weird, to say the least. She had never been the most social or outgoing person, and so she had assumed that the quarantine measures wouldn't bother her too much. She would still...
Same.
No, I'm going to say this is like, it's so funny, like reading, as we'll get into all of these drabbles, you're like, wow, this is like the exact motions that we were all feeling.
Oh, yeah. No, I felt like, this is fine.
You're like, oh, whatever.
Man, I sure do love books.
I sure do love my own company.
They can really fill my day. I do love my wife.
Just me and a book and a puzzle. That's enough.
And then like 4 weeks later, I was like, I'm not mad, but I am a little itchy. Like...
I thought there was like, you would come, we were recording Find Pairings, and you would come over to my house, and I'd be like, Grace, you're the only person I've seen in weeks, and I haven't felt the human touch of another person.
Please let me feel human touch.
And you were like, it's that we had recorded several times, and then I finally had to be like, I haven't been hugged in months, and you were like, you haven't been hugged? And I would be like, yeah, it's fine. And you were like, do you need a hug?
It's not.
And I was like, yeah, I think I need a hug.
Like, I know some friends are like very physical. And so like, live your lives. Like, do you want me to like lay on you? Like, we could touch this whole time if you need to, because at the time we had one mic. So I could have touched you more.
Yeah. And I, like, physical touch is not my, like, leading love language. And so I didn't realize.
It's completely devoid of possibility at any given moment.
Until I was like, wow, I have not touched a single person.
Because I also, like, I mean, I guess your parents are around too. So, like, I was seeing, like, my parents, and obviously my wife and I live together. So, like, I was getting a good amount of human touch.
And my parents are both...
So I was not really understanding where you were coming from.
No, and both of my parents were on the front lines. And so
true. I forgot about that.
So they were like...
You couldn't touch them.
They were like, you cannot touch us. And so it took us even a long time for them to even be like, you can be in the same space as us, but just like sitting 15 feet away.
That's so sad.
And so, so it was like, it's that we had like my mom and I had whole conversations about like, we didn't see each other for like months because she was like afraid of cross-contamination. Mm-hmm. And then finally she was like, you know what?
My parents were both retired. And so I was like, okay, I'll come over.
Yeah. No, my mom was in hospitals every other day and my dad was a dentist. So he was
people's mouths.
In people's mouths.
Literally in people's mouths.
Yeah. So he was like,
don't touch me.
And so we used to be like, who is the most at risk?
Probably your dad.
Yeah. But then they were like, my mom was like so convinced I had the worst immune system. And so she was like,
did she just have a hunch? Like,
yeah,
what?
I don't know. She just was like,
you were not around anybody.
No. So she was like, Claire likes to do things. I don't know. I think she thought I was irresponsible because she was like, Claire will like to do things. And I was like, no, I cut those out.
But also like I should go do things because I am not touching any people. And that's bad for my psyche.
Yeah. And as an extrovert, that was harder. Yeah. And then the other hard part was at the time, the project I was in. The project I was in was with people who were in a European time zone.
Yeah.
So I only had like human contact until 10 a.m. And then it was just done. And by human contact, I mean Zoom calls.
You could have moved in with us, like. You could
but back then is when we were like, this will end in 2 weeks, and so I kept just being like 2 more weeks, and then it'd
2 more weeks is fine. 2 more weeks is fine. And
then all of a sudden it's been like, well, it's been 5 months.
Yeah.
And that's when I finally had to be like, Grace, I think I need a hug.
Yep. No, I'm glad you asked. I wouldn't have thought about it.
Pandemic life was weird, to say the least. Yeah. She had never been the most social or outgoing person, so she had assumed that the quarantine measures wouldn't bother her too much. She would stay home, which she loved. She would stay inside, which she loved. And heck, Pearl couldn't even get sick, so their private sword training sessions could continue.
Ooh, true.
Though Connie still wore a mask during them. She had never expected that social distancing would grow so severe that she would want to return to school. And yet 4 months into quarantine, all she could think about was how desperately she wished she could be in a classroom instead of watching their teacher fumble with a video chat yet again.
Yeah.
On the flip side, Stephen had never been to school, but he hadn't expected the boardwalk to shut down so thoroughly. No tourists meant no business, and everyone closed up shop for most of the day. He had thought that would be fine, just more time to focus on his own hobbies. And video games. Stephen had never thought he would have too much free time for video games, but as he collected the 900th Korok seed and the 100% completed Breath of the Wild, he could only stare in horror at the number of hours on his save file and whisper, why did I do this? Before reluctantly moving to a new save slot and starting the game over again.
I'm going to look up how long it takes to finish Breath of the Wild. 1 sec. About 50 hours. Like, that's not the longest video game, but I was like, I feel like Breath of the Wild can get kind of long.
That's a full-time job for like a week and 2 days.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of game time.
That's a lot of game time.
Considering that like normally if you were playing like
it'd be like 2 hours at a time or something.
Yeah. That would take like a full month to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the other part is he got 100% complete, which means he did all of the side quests too. So it's not just the like
this article says to beat the main storyline is about 30 hours. For side quests, maybe 50. I've spent 150 hours on the game so far, and I've done everything except for collecting all of the different Korok seeds. So could also be up to like 200 hours, maybe.
Dark timeline. Neither of them had ever imagined Pearl could be more of a neat freak, and yet there they were. They stared vacantly into the middle distance as she rubbed hand sanitizer from their fingertips to their elbows, because it was so much easier to just let her get it over with than to protest they could clean themselves just fine. Even Amethyst took interest in hygiene and kept a close eye to make sure they were washing their hands. Several months in, Connie found herself doing the unthinkable. I can't believe we're doing this, she mumbled to herself as she opened up the chat client. I promised I would never be this person again. And yet, there she was, joining Stephen in a Warrior Cats RP server because there were hours and hours of nothing to do all day, and she could think of nothing else to do with her life than resurrect Nightfelt, her OC from when she was 12, and assist Stephen in making his own. She returned to the darkness, a Warrior Cat text role player once more. Everything was just so surreal, and yet every day that passed just made it more normal. Stay inside, stay clean, avoid people. It was so simple, and yet somehow it pervaded every aspect of their lives. Slowly, the changes to the world and themselves were nothing to comment on at all. Of course, you held your breath around someone not wearing a mask. Of course, you stayed as far from people as you could. Of course, you washed your hands every time you left or returned to the house. We need to find ways of not going crazy, Connie muttered into her webcam. I can't role play all day. I'm going to lose my mind. Any ideas? Stephen hummed. Maybe a couple.
Wait, weren't they together earlier in this fic? Or were they talking on webcam?
I think they were together. They were walking around. Next drabble. Stephen had always been tuned in a bit more to the alien and a bit less to the human, and so came up with a few brilliant non-human ideas to help them stay sane. Connie called them cheats, but she did it with a smile or a laugh, so he never felt like she was anything but grateful for his ways around quarantine. The big rule was no humans. As long as there was no contact with humankind, the possibilities were endless. So you're right. They can hang out together.
Okay, so like back to, if you haven't seen this show, I'm sorry, it's going to be very confusing, but they all have like more or less like liminal spaces where they can go and like create new locale.
Yep.
That would be like the ideal. If you can't see other people, you can at least change your environment like a lot.
No. And you will see in this drabble, I think that's, good. It is this drabble.
I would immediately invite her over to be like, hey, come and explore this cloud room.
Yes.
Have some fun.
Yeah. So that's what they're going to do. So the rule is no humans. As long as there was no contact with humankind, the possibilities were endless.
Yes.
Sometimes they would hop on Lion, and he would take them somewhere wild and lonely and their beautiful little rock. They tried to enjoy the sunshine on a deserted island, or the sounds of insects and birds in a jungle, or even the icy wind of an empty tundra. It was nice to explore Earth. They always enjoyed it. And for context, Lion can create portals to other places.
Right. Yes. And also I think Steven's bedroom can also do kind of a similar thing.
Of course, they had thought at this point in their lives, their exploration of Earth would involve a lot more cities, a lot more people. But safety was more important than anything, and they had the rest of their lives to explore cities. Really, this was an opportunity. They spent a lot of time around gems, because gems couldn't get sick, and that helped them keep sane quite a bit. And even then, something felt strange, always being around their alien friends, as if that drew all the more attention that they could never be around their human ones. There was a lot of video calls with the people they loved, and that helped a lot. They spent lots of time online, finding new fandoms and binge watching and making fan art and fan fiction, meta, as they tried to exist.
Wait, what do we think the gems would write fan fiction about? Does it say?
It does not.
I want them to have the most mundane fan fiction because they're like, wow, this is so interesting. Like they'd be like, you know what? I'm going to write a Downton Abbey fan fiction. Like I'm going to write
Amethyst really
NCIS fan fiction.
Amethyst really likes food, so I think she's writing diners, drive-ins, and dives fanfic.
She would 100% just write like first-person Guy Fieri fan fiction.
Yes.
I am Guy Fieri and I eat this chili.
Yes.
And it's so good.
And then Pearl is writing.
I think Pearl would be like the Downton Abbey kind of like fancy previous decades sort of a location.
Garnet's just shipping everyone.
Ooh, actually, yeah.
Sometimes they left the world entirely because that was something safe to do. They stood on the moon base, their fingers skimming across the controls as they searched across the world for places they could only see from afar and never go to. Cities were emptier now. They were still. Everything was on pause and holding its breath as they waited for all to pass. Isn't it weird? Connie asked. Her hand paused on the orb. The empty streets of Empire City encircled them, barely a car or person walking around the pavement. We're safer on planets humans have never been to than on the one where they were born. And that line fucked me up.
Wait, say it one more time.
We're safer on planets humans have never been to than the one where they were born. And I was like, that's some dark timeline shit. But that's because we are in the dark timeline.
But you're also not wrong.
Right? Only for a little bit. I hope so, she whispered. We worked so hard to make friends, Stephen. I don't want to lose them. He didn't have words for that. Instead, he hugged her tight and she hugged him back, and they did their best to reassure one another as they stood on the empty moon. With their hands away from the controls, their intentions focused only on one another, the magic faded. The city around them dimmed, and they held each other in the dark.
Sad.
Next drabble. You know what I miss the most from before the pandemic? Connie asked,
Hugs.
fiddling with her bowl of grapes. Physical touch. No. They sat side by side on the couch again, trying to enjoy their time together, even as they minimized contact, and the whole room smelled of hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
I think it's movies. Going to the movie theater with my friends. Really? I thought it'd be... Stephen looked surprised, but his voice quickly trailed off as he thought things over. He had thought she would say it would be not seeing her mother as much, but he figured that might have been a little too heavy for the evening. I guess you mean little things. She smiled and nodded, clearly relieved he wasn't going to get too heavy on her. Yeah, little things. I miss movies the most because there's nothing else like it. I can rollerblade around town, and I can have food delivered and stuff like that is really close to how it used to be. But watching a movie at home just isn't like going to the theater at all.
Yeah.
That's true, Stephen sighed and thought for a moment. I think I miss concerts. All the music and all the people, and everything is so exciting, and... He sighed longingly, lowering his head. And I get to go with all my friends in a big group. She ruffled his hair, saying sweetly, You've always been extroverted. This all has to be hitting you especially hard.
Yeah.
I mean, gems are great, but I love my human friends, he said, nodding both to a
He literally had a routine of like, he would go to like every business where he knew
Yes.
someone and just like talk to them and get
Yeah.
snacks and
Yeah.
then leave. Yeah.
But like, what's the 411?
That would be tough.
Right? I mean, gems are great, but I love my human friends, he said, nodding both to agree and to shake her hand out of his hair. I miss them a lot. I'm used to going wherever I want and doing whatever I want and always being around loads of people, you know? I know. Me and your dad are the only humans you get to be close to now, huh? Even Lars is keeping off planet until all of this is over.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
She looked down at her grapes.
Lars.
Lars. She looked down at her grapes with a little frown because things were getting heavy again, as they always did when they tried to talk about this kind of stuff. Yeah, he mumbled. Lars says it's not worth the risk, and he's right. I miss him, you know. Connie pushed her snack aside and flung her arms around him. She hugged him tight, burrowing her face in his neck so her words were mumbled and muffled. I know. I feel it too. It's not like we're really alone. I just want one or two people around, but just one or two people around still gets really lonely. He nuzzled into her hair. I miss being able to give people hugs. That's what I miss the most. On second thought, me too, she agreed quietly. She kissed his cheek.
Aw.
We'll just have to cuddle even more to make up for it, right? Right. Final drabble.
Wow.
Stays dark.
Susan, this has mostly been sad, and now I'm just reflecting on like my life. Thanks, Claire.
Just, turned down for what?
I remember. Okay, that wasn't exactly. There was I think it was like New Year's Eve that year, so it had been like 8 months, but like we were still in quarantine.
Yeah.
And I remember it was just like me and my wife, like kind of drunk in our living room, and like I was having a good time for a little bit, and then at some point I like looked around and was like.
I think I went to bed early because I was like, I can't fucking deal.
Right, and I was like, I want to stay up. I think we might have gone. We watched the like New York stream, so like we might have gone to bed and like pretended 11 o'clock it was midnight because like I was sad.
I think I went to bed at like 9:30 because I was like very
Sad.
team internet that was like, we just need 2020 to be over.
Be done. You should have a New Year's Eve party. I feel like that's something you would do.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. I haven't been to a New Year's Eve party. I don't think we went to one last year because I don't know if anyone.
No,
had one.
I didn't do one last year either.
Yeah. Josie does other stuff. You can do a New Year's Eve party, and I will continue to throw no parties. Thank you.
As is tradition.
As is tradition, I'll just show up and have a good time at other people's houses.
I accept.
Great.
I accept.
Good. Make it happen.
Final drabble. Stephen had always tried to spread his healing around whenever he could. He had always thought there might be better ways to go about it, but he had never really figured out how to start. And because of it, he had mostly stuck to taking care of his loved ones whenever and however he could. However, not long after the pandemic had arrived in Beach City, he had done everything he could to help Priyanka and her team figure out his healing spit. Do you remember
Yeah.
Stephen could lick people?
Oh,
and
yeah,
heal
of
them?
course. Well, because usually he would lick his hand and slap it on people.
Yes.
Which was nicer.
Yes. Or when gems were cracked, he would lick the gems
Yeah.
and heal them.
Yeah, that's funny.
Wild. Man, if you're not aware of Steven Universe, this
This is going to sound really weird out of context, but also everything else we've said is going to sound really weird out of context.
Here we are.
Too late.
This is real. This is me.
This
is exactly where I'm supposed to be now.
Gonna lick my spit all over this gem.
Oh, God.
Why have we not done a Camp Rock fiction? I mean, we've done Jonas Brothers, but not the same.
Right.
I'll save that for another day. Wait, no, we gotta put that on the list that we have that I'm not gonna say more about because it would be a spoiler. Wait.
He had done everything he could to help Priyanka and her team figure out his healing spit. They hadn't had much luck in cloning it, not even with Peridot's help. He kept providing samples.
Is it pronounced Peridot?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
It might be in like real life. I think in this show
it was Peridot.
Yeah. Which it's probably Peridot in like the world.
Yeah.
They called her Peridot.
Now I feel like I gotta Google it.
Peridot.
Peridot. Well, whoever said Peridot to me, thank you for messing me up.
It might be from France.
Wait, do you pronounce the T in peridot or dot? The word does have French origins. So
Okay.
So most jewelers and gemstone collectors don't pronounce the T. We say peridot, following the French. But don't worry, it's also correct to say peridot, which is an acceptable American way to say it.
All right.
Peridot's mineral name is olivine.
So you're not wrong.
Yeah, it's that peridot.
It was just hitting my ear incorrectly because in the show I'm pretty sure they say Peridot, but like,
They do say peridot in Steven Universe. An August birthday.
Is that your birthstone?
Correct. It is the
Oh,
August
cute.
birthstone.
Mine's a diamond.
God damn it. They hadn't had much luck in cloning it, not even with Peridot's help. He kept providing samples, hoping something might crack, but it never seemed to come. And it made sense, really. When coming to healing, things got pretty spotty. Stephen's healing depended on his mood, the person he was healing, and who knew what else. Sometimes a kiss could whisk away any illness, even stuff he didn't realize was an illness. And sometimes it didn't do a thing, even with the same sickness. Unlike with gems, it was all hit or miss. When the pandemic started getting worse, Stephen had gone to the hospital and done his best. He healed everyone he could manage. His body started to ache. His head started to swim, but he did his best to pass out a healing kiss to everyone he could find. Virus or no virus, everyone deserved a chance to get better, right? He was surprised to find himself collapsed and unconscious 3 days in. Your muscles are broken down, Priyanka told him calmly once he woke up in the hospital bed. Not in a dying way, but a workout kind of way. You'll recover. He shook his head, but even that motion made his muscles throb and his head spin.
Buddy.
I don't get it. Am I okay or not? You're going to be okay. You're just overworked, Priyanka explained. She hesitated, then reached out to take his hand. The odd rubber feel of her gloves against his hand was uncomfortable. Everything in the hospital covered in a thin layer of hygienic separation. Even her face was mostly covered, a mask over her mouth and protective glasses over her eyes. But she was trying to comfort him nevertheless. Your magic has limits, and we all appreciate what you've done, but you need to rest. Stephen insisted. I'm fine. People are dying. I know. I'm a doctor, Stephen. Her words were gentle, even as her eyes bore firmly into his and left no room for argument. I know better than anyone how much it hurts to take a break when lives are on the line. But you have to take care of yourself. You'll do more for the world taking those breaks. He swallowed, feeling his body tremble with exhaustion, and couldn't find a way to protest. So what do I do? She leaned forward a little laugh coming from under her mask as she said, I'm going to treat you like a medical supply, okay? You are a limited medicine, and my team will figure out how to pass you out, okay? He didn't
Without you dying.
Yeah, without
Needing
you dying.
full recovery every couple of days.
Right. He didn't want to agree. Stephen wanted to get back on the floor, to kiss everyone he could, and he could barely move. I know, but he could barely move his legs without them aching, and every breath stung. So he recovered and tried not to feel guilty about taking up a hospital bed in the meantime. Every day he came to the hospital for a quarter shift, 2 hours during which Priyanka or another staff member took him around to those at higher risk, and he did his best to heal each one. When he succeeded, people thanked him, and happiness puffed out his chest. And when he failed, people thanked him for trying anyway, and he struggled not to cry.
You don't know. You don't know how.
Right.
It's magic. It's okay. It's
Spotty magic, unreliable.
Buddy.
And when it failed, there was always the chance that the people he was directed to, the worst of the worst, the ones hanging on to the world by a thread, couldn't be saved by conventional medicine. There was always the chance that their thank you was the last thing they said before they passed on. This is getting dark.
This is the last travel?
Yeah.
I'm really sad.
I know.
Okay.
After his shift, standing next to Priyanka in her office, he began, "How many of the people I don't heal? Don't ask about who dies. Don't search for that. You heal people, Stephen, and that's the only thing you need to focus on. Do you understand me?" Her expression was stern, and there was a slight wobble in her voice. He could feel the tension rise in the room as she said, softer this time, "We get through this by focusing on the good we do, not by searching up the places we failed." He swallowed hard, his eyes burning as tears threatened to creep up on him again, and then inevitably fell. "I just don't know if I'm doing enough." "You're trying your best, just like we all are," Priyanka whispered, and her rubber-gloved hand against his own was just normal now. "It's okay, Stephen. You're doing more than enough. Thank you." And that's the end. Not to leave us on just like an emotional low.
Well, now I'm sad.
Well,
Thanks, Claire.
I'm sorry.
I thought we were going to get some kind of fun, kind of slutty roommate lockdown.
Let me tell you, there are
Business.
so many smutty lockdowns.
But like,
Like, I definitely saw Dramini locked in. Like, we
there was
both
a really good, I think I was going to bring it to the Patreon, and now I'm sure it's like somewhere in my bookmarks of a really good Katra Shira lockdown where it was like, oh no, we're literally stuck in this room.
Say la vie, watch what we do
But no, you brought me my sad, repressed memories.
Did this feel like therapy, or did it feel dark?
Both. It felt like both.
Healing
I didn't
can
need to
hurt.
relive these feelings. I could have just moved on with my existence. Thanks.
Yep, this is the COVID episode. Just like I said at the top of the episode, where I was like,
Trigger warning, we're going to talk about COVID.
be like,
Again.
right? Be like, guess what? It's the Grey's Anatomy COVID episode.
You didn't need to watch it, and also it wasn't really necessary for the trajectory of the season, but here we are.
And let me tell you, when I was watching all of those COVID episodes, they're all the same because
Yeah.
it was like all.
Do they like, okay, so it sounds almost like how in the 90s they had like, this is a very special episode where like one character would have anorexia for like an episode and then they would not anymore. It kind of sounds like that where it's like, this episode we have COVID and the next week we're back to fucking in closets.
Yep, that's pretty much it. I think they had to like introduce like, even in this timeline, we have COVID, so that next episode it makes sense why everyone's wearing masks. Or like, I don't, so I feel like it was like,
That does make sense to be like, we're all going to wear masks for filming.
yep.
Sure.
Yeah,
That
so
would be
I
a
think
good way to go back to filming.
Yep. So it's like, but yeah, they like,
Interesting.
but then there was obviously still all of the COVID-y like time
Precautions?
like in all of like the plot lines, like everything you can like assume where, you know, there's like the belligerent patient who comes into the hospital and is like forcibly coughing in doctors' faces, and you're like,
That's gross. That's bad anyway.
yeah, be like, why are you being like that, my
Some
dude?
people be like, that's not good. Stop it. Shouldn't cough on people. It's rude.
But yeah, so I thought it was an interesting, just like, it was a little bit different because since he's alien, then like I liked especially the earlier drabble where he's kind of like, well, why am I doing this? Because like I can't get sick.
Well, no, you're right. It does really remind me of like Steven Universe did a good job of like talking about complex topics that are relevant to the world. Like they had a couple, I want to say, of like commercial PSAs sort of things about racism that came out that were like, hey, like this is why. Because like one character would be like, I don't know why this affects me. It's like, well, because you are this and you are a human and these are the gems and the gems are your friends or like whatever. And it was kind of like in a very similar way. Like this author clearly was like in depth into the messaging of Steven Universe, because this did feel like how they would probably talk about it, is like Steven being like, I want to help as much as I can and like I still have to take care of myself, which like is part of the show.
Yes.
And also being like, well, I'm not a gem, but like I want to be a good example because people see me as a human, so I don't want to look like a human that's like just being a dick.
Right.
Well, so thanks for that.
You're welcome.
So next week to bring us back is historical.
Nice.
What originally did we do that was historical? What?
I think I got this from Tithe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So,
which was
great.
Kylo Ren, but set in the Crusades.
Set in the deep past.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'll return next week with something historical, and then we're getting pretty close to the end of the season, which is wild because I feel like we just got here.
I know.
Every
Time flies when you're having fun. Is this what we had today? Fun?
Was it fun? It's up to you.
Let us know if you had fun at seamless transition.
Friends under nuance.
Feeling uniquely numb. F is
Finding
F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me. N is for anywhere, at any time at all,
if we're only in our own houses.
Yay! If you had fun today, please let us know at Find Pairings Podcast at TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook or Tumblr, and Find Pairings Pod on Twitter, or you can email us at findpairingspodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, tell us all of your feelings. Feelings? No.
Feelings?
No. Oh, yeah. Tell us all your feelings. And also tell us those feelings in a 5-star review, either on Spotify, or you can write us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If you let us know that you have sent that in, we will reward you with a 500-word fan fiction at the end of the season, which is quickly approaching. So get those requests in as soon as possible.
And lastly, if you would like to have more fun with us,
Even more fun.
even more funky, I'm going to use unique again and be
I
like,
was trying to think of a sexy word, and none of them start with F-U-R-N. A flirtatious, a frisky, underwear.
Nude.
No.
No.
I can't think of anything.
A frisky
Garment. Necromancy. That month has passed. We did that last month. Monster Smash.
So what we're alluding to is what is happening over at our freaky _ neurotic Patreon. For $5 a month, you can get 2 additional episodes from Grace and I where we read fanfics that are too smutty and X-rated for the traditional feed.
Yes. That's it.
That's it. That's the fic.
That's it. That's the fic. We hope you had fun.
For now,
Fan fiction under neutrality.
Farewell.
Until next time. Farewell until next time. May we always have fun. Fine pairing.
Thanks.
Fine. Fine up.
Undo.
Next.
Friends. _ No.
Goodbye.
I feel like we're underuse. Use. Friends use nemesis.
We should be nemesis though.
You know what? Farewell until
Friends
next time.
using. Nah.
We already had this. Goodbye.
Goodbye.